It's the Sean Widmer Podcast. It's a journal by someone that just really doesn't like to write.
Today on the podcast, I don't think it's going to be a very long one, but we're going to get a situation that happened at the house that I would love some help with. And we're going to talk, Kelly's What Are You Into? What consumed the majority of my weekend this weekend, college basketball. I wanted to give a shout out, though, real quickly to the fortune cookie. I had a fortune cookie tonight. I broke down at the end of the week, trying just to be good, eat at home, get it done here at the house. I made it. Anna was out of town Wednesday. She got back late Sunday night. And, we had done a good job just eating at home, just trying to be responsible. And finally, Sunday night rolled around, and I was like, you know what? I got to do it. So packed the kids up. They had eaten their dinner, and we rolled down. I got some Panda Express because I love it, and I'm a degenerate for it. And I got that fortune cookie, and Olivia loves herself a fortune cookie, so she and I split it. And it's the third best cookie. Snickerdoodle's the best cookie. Oatmeal, just oatmeal, number 2. Fortune cookie, number 3. One of the things I appreciate about the fortune cookie, it comes at you in one format. You know what you're going to get, and so I like that standard. I get worried about every other kind of cookie, but especially my two favorites, Snickerdoodles and oatmeal. If they aren't somewhat soft, warm is great, but they just need to be soft. You get a crunchy Snickerdoodle, a crunchy oatmeal cookie, they're not good. They're not good. But a crunchy fortune cookie is what you expect, and it's great every time. It's just the consistency is wonderful. So third best cookie, fortune cookie. Today on the podcast, I had a situation occur today I would love some help with. I panicked in the moment. We'll talk about that here in a second. Kelly's What Are You Into today? We're heading to the thing that consumed the majority of my weekend, which was the NCAA tournament. Some thoughts on it, not breaking down games, but some thoughts on watching basketball this weekend that I wanted to get out there. But let's start with what happened at my house today, because I don't know what you're supposed to do in this situation, and maybe you can help me with it. I know there's a lot of people, they listen to the podcast. I get the messages a lot of, why are you whining? Look at this guy whining about, why are you whining about such a dumb thing? That's just the podcast, man. That's the podcast. It's my life. It's my journal. And this is the thing that happened today that made me feel uncomfortable. And maybe there is an obvious solution, and that's why I bring it up on the pod, so that you can help me out. If you want to comment on the podcast, you want to help me out with any of the parenting or life situations, go to seanslife.com, SEAN. There's a huge comment box right there. You can comment there. We read the comments at the end of the next podcast. So you can do it that way. You can go to YouTube, which I need to bring that up. You can go to YouTube. Thank you for the people who are watching on YouTube. You can comment in the comments there. And if you listen on Spotify, Spotify has a nice little question and answer comment section on each individual podcast, so you can do that there. Okay, here's what happened today. I decided it was time to mow the lawn. And there's a lot going on with this one because I've not mowed yet at the new house. And so today was my first outing mowing the lawn. And I love mowing a yard. I do. I like doing it. I know people will say, I don't think so. Just because I love doing it doesn't mean I do it all the time. When we had our house in Spokane, there was times I let that thing grow to an unruly level. But once I get out to do the mowing, I love it. I have a really good time. Put the headphones on, enjoy a little sun. I like how it looks when you're mowing it, and you get to see the difference, the lines between the deep grass and the stuff you're just cutting. I don't know. I like mowing the lawn. So I went out to do that today. And first things first, we have a much bigger yard here than we did in Spokane. And that took a minute. I got a push mower. It's not even self-propelled. And it took a minute to push that thing around the yards. So that first things first, there is that. And I'm excited about getting to do that a lot, but it was like 2 hours, 15 minutes to mow the yard. So here was where my problem kicked in, though. At the previous houses that I've lived in where I've had to mow, our last house was on the corner, and our yard was on the corner, and butting up to our neighbor's yard on one side was driveway right to their yard. And then on the other side, it went into a rock area where there was a cable box and some other things. And then right after that was the neighbor's property where grass was. So it was very defined where the lines were. The house I lived in before that, it was, again, a rock. There was a rock bed in between two of the houses in the front yard, and then the backyards were fenced in. Well, there's no fence in the backyard at our house now, and on either side. So when I'm in the back and there's a big field area, I'm kind of guessing at where the line is. But that wasn't necessarily where my problem happened today. My problem happened at the very beginning of me mowing. When I started up the mower, I put in my headphones. I'm going to do the thing I love, disappear into a podcast while I mow the lawn. So I hit the first stripe, and I'm kind of going around the edges to start with. And I'm listening to my podcast, and I'm thinking, okay, is this the podcast? Excuse me. Is this the podcast I'm going to want to be into or not? And as I'm not really paying attention, I push and I look up, and I'm in my neighbor's front yard. And I have mowed into their front yard, and they had not mowed their front yard yet either. I haven't really met this neighbor. I think it's a single lady, very sweet lady, and I don't really know her well. But I'm now standing 6 feet into her yard with a big old strip of mowed grass right there. And there's no divider in between our yard and her yard. So I already was kind of like, before I even started, I was like, okay, I've got to figure out where I stop, which is kind of part of my question. Where do I stop, not stop? Now, in my head immediately, I think, well, I'll just mow her lawn. But then I've heard horror stories about people who have mowed a neighbor's yard and they're ticked off about it. Also, maybe they've done something to their yard where you're not supposed to mow it for a little while. Like, it's supposed to stay growing for a specific amount of time with like a fertilizer or something. I don't know. Again, I'm not a big yard guy, but I'm standing in her yard and I've got 6 feet, a 6 feet line dug out in her yard, and I've got my blade at the lowest setting, so we are on the earth. So first things first, I went up to her front door, I knocked on the door, rang the doorbell, nothing. So now I had to make a business decision. What are you going to do? So what did I do? I mowed her front yard. So I mow her front yard. But as I'm mowing her front yard, I'm like, okay, well, I've got the front yard mowed. Now, on the other side of her driveway, she has a little bit of yard that is shared with the next neighbor's yard. And I'm like, well, I've got to mow that section a little bit too, so that her whole front yard is even. So I get over there and I'm like, I don't know the dividing line between my neighbor's and the next neighbor's yard. So I get in there and I mow into their front yard now. And now I've dug into just the deepest hole. I'm half a block down the street, just mowing lines and yards. So I kind of panic. I get back to what I'm doing, and I get back to her main front yard, and both of our front yards wrap around between our houses. There's no divider, there's no fence or anything, and they just run all the way back to the creek that's in our backyard. And so as I'm doing this, the grass is really deep at this time because neither of us have mowed yet this year. And it's rained a lot and it's been sunny, so the grass is pretty tall. So I keep on trying to like make it look okay, but where do I stop mowing her lawn? And so I'm doing the thing. I mow a little bit deeper, and then I look at it, I'm like, oh, God, I mean, if I'm going to mow there, I need to mow a little further. And so I end up mowing all along the sides in between our houses on both sides of us. It's probably about a 10, 12-foot gap in between our houses. Then I've now just mowed the whole thing all the way down the sides of our houses. And then now I'm into our backyards. And I'm like, okay, well, what do I do here now? Because now I've got down the between the houses, and there's a big, huge mark where I stop mowing where her backyard is. So now do I just stop there and leave? Like if she comes out to her patio and she looks over, there's tall grass where it could have been cut, and I just kept on mowing and mowing, and finally I just stopped and I go, okay, well, this is where I'm going to end it. And so I felt nice and not nice because I mowed her front yard, I mowed down the side of both sides of her house, and then just stopped randomly right at the backyard and did mine selfishly, and that was it. What are you supposed to do? And how wrong is it? And again, I'm living off of the one time years ago when we talked about this on the radio, and someone called immediately and was like, if someone mowed my yard, I would want to snap their arms off. And that left an impression on me. They're like, you don't know what we've done to our yard. You don't know what we're going to do to our yard. You don't know if we've paid someone to come mow our lawn. And so now you've mowed it and I've wasted money. Like, you don't know. What was I supposed? What was the right thing to do? 6 feet into her yard, I've now marked in a trail. It looks terrible if I leave it. What was the right play? She wasn't home. I don't know. On the other side of my house, I had another similar problem because, again, there's no fence line. And as I started mowing, I saw this neighbor leave. I saw he and his wife pull out of their driveway. They left. And I wasn't even thinking that I should talk to him. Our houses are in sort of a cul-de-sac. And so they're not square next to each other. They're rounded next to each other. So our houses V out from a centralized place along the sidewalk, and then they V outwards towards our backyards. Again, I had no idea where to put the line. So I had mowing escapades today that were embarrassingly bad. I just need to know the proper procedure on how to approach this in the future on both sides. And where do you make a line, and how do you mark it so that in the future when I'm mowing, I don't feel like I haven't mowed enough or I've mowed too much. All right, there you go. Again, I told you, people go, why do you whine about the babyest things? Why don't you just figure it out? Because this is what the podcast is. I enjoy this kind of stuff. Let's do it.
Kelly's, what are you into?
The first weekend of the NCAA tournament continues to be the best weekend in sports. It's so fun. Oh, my goodness. What a weekend. I watched a lot of basketball this weekend. Thursday, Friday. I did sprinkle in Friday night. I got to give a shout out to Dan. Thank you, Dan. Dan got us into a late night for me Dungeons and Dragons game online with a couple random guys, and we had a good time doing that. I did that while having some of the games on late Friday night. But then Saturday night, we stayed up super late. The guys and I stayed up super late watching games. We were watching until after 1 o'clock. And then tonight, we did the same thing. We watched, we just got done watching the San Diego State. Well, I left right at the end of the San Diego State game. There was a couple minutes left. But we were watching the Texas A&M Houston game and the game before. So we watched a lot of college basketball. I watched all day. It was on either my phone or a TV constantly. I just love the NCAA tournament. I hope you did too. I hope you had a fun time with it. But I had a couple observations that I wanted to bring up that aren't just X's and O's things. Number one, and I got to give a little bit of credit to Tyler for this one, TRX12. Are the March Madness commercials better than Super Bowl commercials? Because I think they might be. There were some really good commercials this weekend. If you watched the NCAA tournament, first of all, you know you need to watch Roadhouse, or a little bit of Roadhouse that you didn't watch. My buddy Rob did tell me he saw someone tweet out, for everyone feeling like they need to watch Roadhouse now, go watch the original and then go to bed. So apparently the new one maybe not as good as I want it to be, but yeah, they've baited me on that. But you had a bunch of commercials, standout commercials. You had the Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and Chet Holmgren, shirt I'm wearing, Chet Holmgren, doing the what a pro wants, what a pro needs, them singing, and then Shea Gilgeous calling out Chet for being a little pitchy, a little flat. That's a great commercial. You had the Shaq and the Home Depot commercials. They are awesome, an awesome run of commercials. The Shaq and Home Depot commercials. The Lopez brothers doing the State Farm ad. I thought that was a really fun commercial. Then you had the Buffalo for Buffalo Wild Wings. There was Larry Bird. What is that Larry Bird one? Oh, it's the guy. It's Mayhem. I don't remember who. That's bad. I don't remember who it was. But they had a great run of commercials. The commercials for the NCAA tournament are maybe better than the Super Bowl commercials. So kudos to the companies running these ads. I guess you do know you're going to get them played a lot more than what you get in the Super Bowl. You get them all weekend, all the time. You are bombarded with these commercials. So they were great. It was weird watching the tournament, though, with the way college basketball is now. And one of the guys that this really stood out to me about, and maybe it doesn't happen, but when I'm watching Washington State play, and I was pulling for the Cougs, really wanted them to get through the first weekend, and unfortunately didn't happen, get that first win, and then couldn't pull it off on Saturday. But I'm watching Miles Rice. I think Miles Rice, a player for the Cougs, a freshman, I think he's one of the coolest, smoothest looking players to watch in all of basketball. Everything he does, the way he moves, his mannerisms, it just looks good. He's a fun player to watch. And I was watching him going, I wonder where he's going to go next year. And that's a bad mindset because he might end up at WSU. Hopefully he stays a Coug and you get to see him play there again. But my mind immediately, with how everything goes these days, and you see all these guys who play on different teams. That Tyon guy who played for Grand Canyon was on Kansas for a minute. You have Caleb Love for Arizona who played at North Carolina, and these guys transfer, right? And Miles Rice is going to be somebody who I'm watching him for the Cougs. I'm like, this would be great if he stayed there, but it makes a lot of sense that someone is going to offer him a lot of a scholarship at a bigger school in terms of NIL money, and Miles Rice can go make a bunch of money playing basketball somewhere next year. And I just don't know all the ins and outs of what the Cougars are offering for their NIL stuff. I don't know who's giving them money, and I'm sure they have it, but I've got to assume there are going to be people knocking on Miles' door who are bigger, badder schools with more opportunity. And that's a bummer to watch the games like that. I thought that with a couple teams, you'd see a standout guy and go, oh man, he's going to transfer. So I thought that was a little weird watching. Otherwise, the weekend was great. And the Zags look good. The Zags look really, really good. Anton played well. Ike played well. It was great to see the guards show up. I thought Nemhard and Hickman were fantastic this tournament. Dusty played some good minutes, which was great. Braden Huff played some good minutes in this game on Saturday. I was very impressed with him. Ben Gregg's having a tournament right now. Ben Gregg's the dude. We've covered it before on this podcast. I was down on Ben Gregg for some reason. I just was. I think because so many people were excited about him. I covered it in a previous podcast, and I've eaten my words. I said straight up, I was wrong. On me. No, I'm not going to make any excuses like, well, he wasn't good. I was wrong, straight up. And Ben Gregg is the dude right now. And the Zags go as far as Ben Gregg wants you to go. I love watching him play. Holy cow, he's fun. Shoots the ball well, defends well, and he's just a hustle guy. He's attempting to get in on every board. Nuisance. And he's got some attitude, which is really fun. Zags are fun. Now, they run into a buzzsaw next week. Purdue's had our number. It's a bummer. The Zags had to play Purdue. Purdue looked really good today. And so we'll see. What are you going to do? You're going to count out Mark Few? That's dumb. The second you count out Mark Few, he makes you pay. He is one of the best in the biz. Game plan-wise, it's going to be there, and now it comes down to execution, which is not easy to do. You can't just assume that, hey, Mark Few has a good game plan. Now they're going to win. You got to execute. And these guys have done a very good job executing the first two games of the tournament. I mean, they crushed McNeese State and then handed it to Kansas. So that'll be fun on Friday. Friday's wild because you've got that game, and then in Detroit that's followed up by Creighton, Tennessee, which is going to be probably the game of the weekend, at least looking ahead to what games are going to be good. That's probably your game of the weekend looking ahead. The other one, if it's not that, is Iowa State, Illinois, because no one wanted to talk about Illinois this year because no one wanted to talk about Terrence Shannon, right? Very bad off the field allegations, off the court allegations, making him a scumbag of everything. If everything shakes out poorly and what the accusers are saying, is going on with this guy, he's a bad dude, and I have no interest in him. But Terrence Shannon, the guy no one talked about all season because they were terrified of him, is the best player in the tournament. He's phenomenal. He's crazy good. And it's just funny. Illinois was under the radar because of him. I really believe because of him this year. And he also missed a handful of games because of all this. He's freaking unreal. And he just steamrolled through the first two games of the tournament. And Illinois is wildly good. And they got Iowa State and then probably UConn after that. And you're going to learn real quick, is Terrence Shannon the best basketball player in college right now? You're going to learn that next weekend. And everyone's going to get to watch him, and then everyone's going to look him up, and everyone's going to go, dang it, we are not Terrence Shannon fans right now. It's not going to be the thing. But we got good games. I'm excited for Arizona. Tommy Lloyd, Rem Bakamis, Shemek Karnowski. Okay, I said I wasn't going to do X's and O's. That's it. College basketball. It's weird to watch knowing guys could transfer at any moment. It made me sad for a lot of these smaller schools. I know Washington State is not a smaller school, but I think you know what I'm saying in terms of money. They're probably a smaller school on the NIL scale compared to where Miles Rice could go. Okay, let's read some comments. close out the Monday podcast. Thank you for listening. I mentioned that already, but I just wanted to hammer that home. All right, here's what we got today. Let's go to Spotify first and foremost, because I believe there was a comment on Spotify. Yes, there was, and it was from Yvonne, and she says, I love that Huck got purple, and you picked the purple teams. You know how much I like purple. Yvonne, I do. You are a diehard purple gal. Well done. She goes on to say, you definitely need to change Olivia's birthday choice. Not a Starbucks fan either. Thank you. Thank you, Yvonne. And yeah, the purple thing worked out. Purple thing worked out well. I shared that information with the guys that were watching the games with. A couple of them like to throw some money down on the games, and they hit some big money, some big winners betting the purple teams on Friday. I think it was Friday. In fact, I think there was 5 purple teams that played Friday, and only one of them didn't win. So Huck's purple call was awesome. Nicely done, buddy. Okay, there's Yvonne. Thank you, Yvonne, for commenting. It means a lot. We've got Ron here over at Sean'sLife.com. And he says, go Zags. I watched a ton of basketball this weekend. Big shout out to my wife for understanding. Looking forward to baseball opening day this week. Stoked that my Giants picked up Seattle native Blake Snell. Go Giants. Yeah, opening day for baseball this week. Ron, very excited for you. I know that's a big deal here because the Reds have a lot of young talent. I guess a lot of the guys are hurt, but I know the guys tonight were talking about going to Reds opening day on Thursday, and they're very excited about it. Baseball's back. It's hard for me to get into baseball when college basketball is going on, and I'm with you, Ron. Now, my wife, I don't have to thank my wife for understanding. My wife was out of town Wednesday through just now, the late Sunday night. So I'm going to have to say thanks to my kids for understanding that I was half-heartedly playing Hungry Hippos and sorry with them while one eye was on the TV at all times. So thank you, kids, for understanding that Daddy was sort of present, but also definitely present in the college hoops games. All right, Ian says this. 5 games I'm playing on my phone. Okay, let's see what you got, Ian. I'm excited for this. Again, we love a phone game, so here's some suggestions. Tiny World MMO. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know a lot of these. I haven't played a lot of them on my phone. Tiny World MMO. Bloons TD6. That is a game that Ian and Brandon love. Bloons. Sci-Fi Idol. CIFI Idol. Never heard of it. Dungeon Defenders Mobile. Not available anymore. Okay, so scratch that. And Final Fantasy Tactics War of the Lions. Can't judge AAA games by Suicide Squad. Okay, that's the end of that one. And those are okay. So we've got some games. Can't judge AAA games by Suicide Squad. Warner Brothers micromanages all their IPs they own to a ridiculous level. You can't, but you can a little bit because there's a lot of games in that format. You know what I'm saying, Ian? A lot of these big AAA games aren't making the money they need to, and the way you make the money now is to find a game that you can microtransaction, not micromanage, but microtransaction. All right, apparently I didn't send you this, so I'll have 2 from me. Sorry. Okay, so he had 2 comments. Let's see, what did he say in the other one? His oldest daughter wants a D&D session for her birthday party. We turn Emma's favorite show. Oh, nice. That's great. We turn Emma's favorite show on for her hair. Great idea. Doing the girls' hair. You throw on a show on the phone. That's a winner for us. I kind of try to get the hair to coincide with toothbrush time. So you focus on brushing your teeth. I'll focus on the hair. Have you thought about downloading a program from GameMaker.io, practicing your coding skills, making games? I have not thought of that. GameMaker.io. I'll try it. That sounds awesome. It's been a few days. How's your extended family taking the loss? Sorry again for 2 comments. Totally forgot to click submit. You're good, Ian. Family's bummed. Family's bummed. I know this podcast goes up on Monday morning. There's a lot of rumors in town that Monday, I guess Coach Cal has a coach's radio show today, Monday, the day this is released. And so a lot of people are assuming something's going to happen today. Everyone's bummed out. Everyone's extremely bummed out in Kentucky. And to the point where tonight, one of the main talking points was, Cal's got to go. Who does Kentucky hire? And then the other question was, if you think of college basketball programs, what is like the premier coaching job? It doesn't have to, we didn't do it like it has to be available, but what school is the premier college basketball program in the United States. Two of the big sports guys said North Carolina. One guy was in on Kentucky. I mean, there was a handful of other ones out there, but what is it? What's like the premier program in college basketball? Finally, let's go to YouTube, where Roberta commented and said, hope my comment on retiring her dress wasn't out of line. I can feel the pain of your in-laws and wife. We have been there too. It happens. One year my softball team lost every game in regular play, double elimination tournament. We didn't lose one, and we're city champions. Strange stuff happens in sports. Roberta, trust me, it was not. Everyone, I did get a lot of people who reached out and said, hey, sorry if I was the one who crossed the line. I'm telling you, it wasn't you. The people who are crossing the line, there's no way they listen to the podcast, which is why I didn't feel bad going in on it on the podcast. I just needed to let it out and not like get into a fight with these people. But it's just people it's people I had never even heard from, or people from long ago that we haven't heard from in forever. And it was like, what are you doing? So yeah, it wasn't like any close friends or anything like that who are doing that. Close friends, you're allowed to do that. If you're a close friend to someone and you're in constant talking with them all the time, you're supposed to rib them. That's different. It's people out of nowhere. It's also the timing right after. Anyways, we're not doing that again. Thank you for the comments. I appreciate it. Thank you for listening. Tell a friend about it. Feel free to share if you find something that you like of mine on TikTok or Instagram, one of the little reels or TikToks. Feel free to share it. I actually had my first time ever. I had one go kind of viral. It's like got 34,000 views. I was like, holy cow. I felt like we're doing something. Then I posted the next one and it was like 7 views. So there you go. I would say the average is about 10, but one went crazy and I thought, here it is. But that was not the case. Thank you though so much for listening. Have a great start to your week.